Hey people of planet Earth, I've got to start this video off by saying holy crap, I still can't believe I have over 1,000 subscribers now. It's hard to imagine even 50 people giving me the time of day, but 1,050? It's incredible. It's mind-blowing. But that's enough self-abasing self-aggrandizement. Let's get to today's mods. I've reviewed tons of guns, and now I think it's time to make a change and cover melee weapon mods for once. I've got 11 mods to cover, and they're on screen right now. There has to be some good ones in here. Keep in mind, I'm only going to look at standalone weapons in this video. If a melee weapon is part of a huge collection like MCAM or a classic melee pack, I'd probably have to dedicate a whole video to looking at those individual mods. Alright, you know the drill. If I had to keep just one of these mods in my game, it would have to be the Proton Axe mod. It's lore-friendly, it looks pretty good, and while it doesn't have custom animations or a wide variety of attachments, you could say the same for most of the mods on this list. I have to hand the win over to the Proton Axe for being the best of a very bad batch. If you don't care about preserving the integrity of the setting, the Lightsaber mod is also super awesome. I would definitely recommend it as well, just not for a serious playthrough. That brings me to our first mod, Star Wars, the Lightsaber. I don't think I have to tell you that this mod is in no way lore-friendly. There are two unique lightsabers in this mod. One is called the Darksaber, which can be found on a synth courser at the Sentinel site in the Glowing Sea, and a toy lightsaber that can be found at the Electrical Hobbyists Club. Regular lightsabers can be crafted at a chemistry lab, along with various holstered sabers you can wear as apparel, since this mod came out long before the classic holstered weapons plugin existed. For most PC players, these holstered models will be superfluous, but they're still useful for console players. These sabers have been injected into leveled lists, but there's a patch to remove the integration if you don't want to see Brotherhood Knights turning into fucking Jedi Knights. In addition, there's a 1K saber hilt texture patch for potato computers. These lightsabers don't have custom animations, they either use vanilla one-handed melee or baseball bat animations. While this is somewhat disappointing, consequently these lightsabers work flawlessly in third person and in power armor. The sounds are great too, very authentic to Star Wars, but a known issue is the ignition sound playing instead of the shut-off sound in third person. This is an engine problem that can't be fixed apparently. These lightsabers emit colored light similarly to the vanilla shish kebab, which looks really cool. Unfortunately, the light is still emitted even when the saber is dropped and turned off, which is less cool. But that's another engine problem that can't be solved. When hitting objects with the lightsaber, scorch marks are generated, which look awesome, but they don't appear consistently. Again, engine issues, I suspect. Still, it's better to have these marks sometimes than not have them at all. The lightsaber has a crazy amount of attachments for a melee weapon. 8 different audio selections for swinging the lightsaber. 117, yes, 117 different saber hilts taken from all sorts of recognizable Star Wars characters. And some of these hilts make the saber use two-handed baseball bat animations. Baseball bat animations aren't a great fit in third person, unfortunately. There's 16 different humming sounds, 66 different blade options, each having a different length and thickness. There's an option to use knife animations, which look good paired with a shorter saber. Some of the hilts have alternative material options, some of them have quillins like Kylo Ren's lightsaber. There are 20 different ignition audio choices, 11 different shut-off sounds, 3 different crystals that make the weapon deal extra damage, 4 different power modules which are equivalent to receiver upgrades for a gun. There's 30 different blade colors and 19 lighting colors, including an option to disable the light source entirely. This level of customization is absolutely unbelievable. And it extends to the Darksaber too, which while missing most of the hilt and blade options is otherwise the same as the regular lightsaber. Even the toy lightsaber joke weapon has a bunch of different blade colors. This mod is amazing. If it only had custom animations and maybe some staff or dual-wielded lightsabers, it would be a perfect 10 out of 10. As is, it's like a 9.5 out of 10. It's really freaking good. Second, we have Fire Axe, a standalone melee weapon. This weapon has one pre-placed spawn at the Cambridge police station. It is also injected into leveled lists. The modeling and texture work is pretty great on this axe, there's not much to complain about there. It doesn't have custom animations, instead using the same anims as Grognak's axe. These animations fit the weapon very well, and of course because they're from vanilla, They work fine in third person and in power armor. The upgrades, or rather lack of upgrades, are what really lets this weapon down. It only has a comfort handle and a heating coil blade. 2 upgrades, that's it. Even the vanilla melee weapons aren't that pathetic. The fire axe in MCAM is probably a lot better than this disappointing but functional weapon. Next on the chopping block is the mod Cleaver Melee Weapon. This mod annoyed me right from the beginning by being packaged as loose files. It also doesn't have any leveled list injection. Instead, it's placed in about a dozen or so different locations around the Commonwealth. The modeling and texture work are serviceable, but there's nothing complex going on with this mesh. It uses vanilla one-handed melee animations, so like the last 2 mods, it works great in power armor and in third person. For attachments, the Cleaver has 4 blades, 3 different handles, and 4 tape colors. Note that the handles and tape are entirely cosmetic, so this weapon really has no more customization than vanilla melee weapons do. I don't think this weapon is worth downloading. I can't find anything compelling about it. The 4th melee weapon I'm looking at is AnotherOne's CyberOut 77 Katana. It doesn't have leveled list integration, but instead adds a location near Boston Common called the Ruined Sword Museum. Inside the building in this crate, you'll find conserved swords, which can be used at a chemistry lab to craft a whopping 28 different unique katanas. That's awesome, and this weapon is the first one on this list to actually feature custom animations. They look incredible in first person, and decent in third person. An interesting quirk with this weapon is you automatically attack whenever you unsheath it, so don't whip it out in front of anything you care about. In power armor, interestingly, the custom animations are disabled and vanilla one-handed melee animations are used instead, which actually makes perfect sense since you aren't pulling off these moves in power armor. Each of these 28 katanas have the same 3 blade upgrades, as well as an option to disable the custom animations or use a one-handed version of the animations that only work in first person. I'll cut this mod some slack for not having many attachments considering the massive number of base weapons that it adds. I think this is a great mod. It's probably my 3rd favorite on this list after the Lightsaber and Proton Axe. Speaking of Proton Axe, let's look at it right now. There are 2 unique versions of this weapon, the Neutron Axe, which can be found at Poseidon Energy next to this magazine and Endurance bobblehead, and the Electron Axe, which can be found at the Poseidon Energy Turbine 18F. Neither of these unique variants have legendary effects. At Poseidon Reservoir, you can find the regular Proton Axe, which has not been integrated into leveled lists. In terms of appearance, these weapons are faithful recreations of what we had in the Old World Blues DLC for New Vegas. I do wish the blade had an animated texture, but maybe that's not possible with this engine. The Neutron and Proton Axes use Grognak's axe animations, and the Electron Axe uses regular one-handed melee animations. All work perfectly fine in power armor and in third person as expected. And all 3 axes have the same modifications. You can boost or overcharge the axes and choose between increased energy damage or armor penetration. There are also 11 different colors for the blade. This mod is pretty standard fare stuff, it won't blow you away, but these are a decent trio of lore-friendly weapons to have in-game. The 6th mod today is another Proton Axe called Proton Axe New Vegas. This version doesn't have any unique variants, but it does have leveled list injection. Not that it matters because this weapon is fugly. The model is blocky, and the texture looks like a generic scratched metal from textures.com that got carelessly applied over the entire weapon. What the f***? The blade doesn't even render correctly in inspect mode or the weapon's workbench, and it's an ugly solid color otherwise. The animations are once again taken from Grognak's axe, so everything works like a charm on the animation front at least. But that doesn't matter because this ugly piece of crap only has 2 attachments, the only visual difference between them being the blade turning a darker shade of blue. This is one of the worst weapon mods I've ever seen. The only good thing I can say about it is it's functional, it won't crash your game, but it's not worth the plugin slot it takes up. Next up we have the Bowie Knife, or Bowie Knife, I don't know. This weapon is injected into leveled lists, but has no unique variants. I think this knife is well modeled and textured, and since it uses the same animations as vanilla knives, there are no animation problems in third person or power armor. As far as attachments go, there are 4 different blades that all look the same, and a blackened steel texture. That's it. Ultimately, I have very little to say about this weapon. It does nothing to distinguish itself from the vanilla combat knife. I don't see a reason to bother downloading it. Our 8th mod today is the Select Balisong Knife. It's been injected into leveled lists, and it can be crafted at a chem lab. This is a very fancy looking knife that's been modeled quite nicely, and it actually has custom animations. Unfortunately, these new animations, while cool looking, are obscenely slow and flashy, which makes the knife difficult to use in actual combat. Also, these animations only work properly in first person. In third person, while blocking or jogging, the weapon parts detach from each other, and the same happens all the time while in power armor, whether in first or third person. That's definitely not something you want to see. There is a decent variety of attachments. There are 12 different handles, 4 different blade styles, and 8 blade textures, but all of these attachments are purely cosmetic, and they don't change my conclusion about this weapon. It's bad, and not worth downloading. Our 9th mod is SOG Fasthawk, and at first I thought I might not be able to review it at all because the weapon was completely invisible in-game. Luckily, by extracting the BSA files, deleting them, and just using loose files, I was able to get the weapon to actually appear. To be honest, this mod wasn't worth the effort I put into fixing it. The model and texture are high quality, but it uses vanilla animations and only has one attachment that makes the blade look more grimy. There is a unique variant called Radhawk, which can be found in the Gunner's Plaza basement, but the Radhawk doesn't have any attachments. This mod is yet another stinker. It's not worth the hassle of installing it. Our 10th mod today is the Kukri Knife. This mod comes as loose files, which is a knock against it right away. Another knock against it is the leveled list integration, which is done not through scripted injection, but rather the old-fashioned method of directly editing the leveled lists. The weapon itself doesn't look that bad at first glance, but the blade texture has an ugly black square, and its UV seams are extremely visible. The 4K texture option might rectify these issues, but considering this weapon has no custom animations and no attachments at all, why even bother downloading that? This mod is awful. The Kukri that came as a bonus from the FN FAL battle rifle I reviewed earlier was way better than this. There's no need to dwell on this mod, don't download it, let's move on. Our final mod today is also crap, and it's the Standalone Fallout 3 Trench Knife. This weapon has no leveled list integration, no attachments, no custom animations, and has only one pre-play spawn at Sanctuary Hills. You can also craft it at the chem lab. I guess the model isn't that ugly, but I don't even want to waste time talking about this weapon. I would use the vanilla combat knife over this. Alright people, I'm sorry that most of these mods were really bad, but there were a couple of gems hidden in the muck. Maybe I'll find more jewels and fewer turds next time. I certainly hope so. But until then, toodles.